What's up, fight fans? Thank you once again for coming through. Much appreciated. Remember, hit that subscribe button if you guys are new to the channel. Alright, so the legendary Hall of Famer, arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time, Roy Jones Jr. makes his 75th and final walk to the ring February 8th, where he takes on Scott Sigman, who I am not too happy that Roy Jones is fighting, by the way. Anytime any fighter's got a winning record, I'm a bit nervous for Roy Jones. I can't lie, I'm a bit nervous. And that's funny because I just had a look at Roy Jones's record. And I don't know, immediately when I think of Roy Jones, I think of someone that's been knocked out. That's just the first thought that comes to my mind. I think of Lebedev, I think of Danny Green, I think of Enzo Maccarinelli. But then I looked at his record, and since 2011, I think he's had what? I can't remember, I think it was like 10, 11 fights. Only Enzo Maccarinelli's knocked him out. So Denis Lebedev knocked him out in 2011, and up from now until 2017, where he's had like 11 fights, it's been Roy that's been knocking those guys out. So it's strange, so it's like, yes, we've been all calling for Roy to retire, and I've been one of those people like begging for him to retire, but they've matched him in a way where it's almost like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't say freak shows, because Ende's, you know, he's been fighting ranked people, I guess, or people, you know, that box, so to speak, but they've matched him carefully, put it that way. So his handlers have matched him carefully, and it's just been a case of Roy earning some money and doing what he wants to do, which is box. And look, Roy is a very stubborn person. I mean, a number of these people around him said he's stubborn. If he wants to box, he'll box. And when someone is like that, just give him fights that he can win. Give him fights that he can win. And I don't know if I'm just contradicting myself, because Ende is fighting someone that he's knocking out. So what about that person? Right? But nonetheless, Roy Jones Jr., fingers crossed, last fight will be February 8th, and it's against a decent opponent. Another thing that surprised me as well is that the fight will be on UFC Fight Pass. I don't know if other people decided not to take the fight in terms of ESPN, HBO, Showtime. Probably not. So UFC Fight Pass will air the fight, which is interesting. Remember, Roy Jones Jr. has a fantastic relationship with Dana White. Dana White was a boxing manager. I think people forget Dana White, although he's the head of the biggest MMA organization in the world, Dana White was a boxing man beforehand, and he still is a boxing man. Openly admits he watches and attends the big fights, so he's a boxing man. I remember there was a big rumor about Roy Jones Jr. versus Anderson Silva. Obviously that fight never happened, and thank God didn't happen. But I think he's a boxing man, and I think he would have jumped at the chance of maybe, or sorry, showing the last fight of arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time. And I kind of want to make a video about that, because I think, especially if you're a new boxing fan, if you are in your 20s or a teenager, I don't know if you fully understand how big and how good Roy Jones Jr. was. Sometimes I question whether or not people know, especially now in the era of sort of social media and everyone thinking that Floyd Mayweather was the greatest of all time. Before Floyd, there was Roy. Roy was the showman. Roy was the one with all the silky skills. Roy was the one that made a rap video. Roy was the one in movies. Roy was the guy that went from middleweight to heavyweight. Think about that for a second. Middleweight to heavyweight. Think of Gennady Golovkin, who's arguably the greatest middleweight right now, probably of this era. I think that's fair to say. Gone up to heavyweight. You can't even think of Gennady Golovkin going to 175 and causing problems. Bernard Hopkins, a fantastic middleweight. Bernard Hopkins, arguably one of the top four greatest middleweights of all time. Went up to light heavyweight, and that was his limit. Think of him going to heavyweight. Now, some people will say, okay, but Roy Jones went up and fought John Ruiz. I mean, come on, John Ruiz is a small heavyweight. That was a John Ruiz who had just beaten Evander Holyfield, who had just had the back-to-back fights of Lennox Lewis. John Ruiz was still serviceable. Roy Jones Jr. went up and pretty much embarrassed him. In 2003, Roy Jones was arguably the biggest name in boxing. Arguably the biggest name in boxing. Like, by far, in fact. Like, see you later. The biggest name in boxing. So much so that he was supposed to fight Mike Tyson. He was supposed to fight Mike Tyson. I can't remember Roy Jones's manager or promoter's name. I think something Muhammad. Anyway, I remember reading something years ago where he kind of released how it went. So basically, the three big names at heavyweight at the time were Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, and Mike Tyson. And Roy Jones Jr. having beat John Ruiz was like the big name. Everyone wanted to fight Roy Jones. So there was talks about Lennox Lewis versus Roy Jones, 25 million. Lennox Lewis said, hell yeah, obviously. That didn't match out, it didn't work. I think Lennox Lewis had the fight against Vitali, subsequently retired, didn't happen. Roy Jones Jr. went down to 175, Tava. We all know the rest of that story. Evander Holyfield said yes, 10 million was agreed to Evander Holyfield, but Evander Holyfield had massive issues with Don King, so that didn't happen. So Roy Jones Jr. got on the phone and said, look, give me Mike Tyson. And his trainer said, what? Sorry, his promoter said, what? Mike Tyson? Like, don't be stupid. This is Mike Tyson. Wasn't the great Mike Tyson at the time, but nonetheless, it's the Mike Tyson that just knocked out Clifford Etienne. He still had a lot of punching power. And for Roy Jones Jr. would have been a bit of a nightmare because he was tiny, Roy Jones, wasn't he? So Mike Tyson would have loved that fight. So he said, look, give me Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson immediately agreed. Said, look, yep, 25 million, done. Mike Tyson then phoned, this is rumoured, Mike Tyson phoned Roy Jones Jr. and said, look, let's do this as a trilogy. If you beat me, I want the rematch, and then it will be a trilogy. Mike Tyson also said to Roy Jones Jr., I think Mike Tyson's putting this in his autobiography as well, that he said, look, I'm going to dog you before the fight, I'm going to sell the fight, I'm going to say some horrible things to you, but it's not like that, you're my friend, we're cool. That fight never happened because I think the fight after that, sorry, as soon as that Clifford Etienne fight happened, Mike Tyson filed for bankruptcy. Roy Jones Jr. went down to 175. Mike then lost to Danny Williams. Fight over. Didn't happen. That close to happening. Mike versus Roy. You know what's even crazier? Roy was favourite. Roy was favourite. The booking, I remember it opened in Las Vegas. Roy was favourite to beat Mike Tyson. Understand this, people. A lot of the smaller fighters get so much plaudits by going up a couple of pounds, eating a burger, going up 2 pounds. Oh, I moved up another weight class. Happens a lot, right? Happens a lot. You get those guys below that, like, go up 8 pounds and, sorry, 9 or 10 pounds. And by that 9 or 10 pounds, they've gone for like 3 or 4 weight classes and they're 4-weight world champion. Roy Jones Jr. went from middleweight to heavyweight. 160 to 200 pounds. Roy Jones Jr. went up 40 pounds. 40 pounds. Roy Jones Jr. is one of the greatest fighters of all time. In the Boxing Writers Association of America, sorry, Boxing Writers Association, yeah, gave Roy Jones Jr. the best fighter of the decade in the 90s. Do you know how many fighters were around in the 90s? How many superstars were around in the 90s? Roy Jones Jr. was numero uno. I don't know, when it's all said and done, I don't know how you judge a career. I don't know if you go for the whole stack of the career or you stop when it starts to get silly. If you judge someone's career for the whole of the career, then yeah, Roy Jones Jr. might struggle to make the top 20, top 30 ever. If you stop when Roy Jones Jr. beat John Ruiz, there's an argument for Roy Jones Jr. being top 5, top 10 fighter of all time. Of all time. I don't know where you stop. I like to look at Roy from when he started his career up until he fought John Ruiz. Because the Roy after that, I just don't know. Yeah, there are some discrepancies. There were rumours of steroid abuse. I don't know if it was true or not. There are rumours of that. There's something about me that makes me feel like everyone was juicing back then. I mean, you look at the likes of Evander. Come on now. But it's interesting, especially the Mike Tyson story. But how do you guys remember Roy? Again, final fight. What a legendary career. Oh, I mean, come on. Middleweight champion. I mean, nah. What a legendary career. 4-weight world champion. Middleweight to heavyweight. Middleweight to heavyweight. Just think about that. Think about it. Think of, this is going to sound crazy, think of Chris Eubank Jr. going up to heavyweight. Think. Canelo, go to heavyweight. GGG, go to heavyweight. It doesn't even sound, it doesn't even make sense. This kid done it. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Leave your thoughts. Peace.